Jamie, let's pop off right now. We got to get started.
We gotta go.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's get the people in the chat. Hustle from irishsportsdaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flamong, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uwayama, Mr. Jamie University. Notre Dame falls to Clemson 31-23 in what was just an absolute stinker. Stinker on offense.
Disgusting loss. Yeah.
Stinker. Stinker at times on defense. I think the defense on the main played better than the offense did, but some really bad errors.
Much better than the offense.
Yeah, much better than the offense, but some really bad, like critical drives that they gave up when you just really couldn't have it. It cost Notre Dame the game. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If this is your first time catching the instant reaction show, and you like what you hear, please subscribe to the show. Please hit the like button. Please hit the notification bell so you know that we're going live. Links to this podcast are in the description below if you prefer the audio format. And if you prefer the audio format on all of our shows, Jamie, we have lots of shows. And if you'd like to listen to us and not watch us, that's fine. You can do that. Notre Dame came out in their whites, Jamie, in their white pants, which was a surprise to everyone. Is that a good clothing choice? I don't know, but I think I encourage everyone to make a good clothing choice for themselves and go to esqclothing.com, which has created the world's first bamboo dress shirt. It's crafted from high quality bamboo fabric. It's the softest and most comfortable shirt you'll ever put on. Not only more sustainable than cotton, also feels cooler, has stretch, is odor and wrinkle resistant. It's even machine washable. You've seen ESQ's one-piece collar bamboo dress shirt on all of Notre Dame's top players and coaches. It's the perfect shirt for today's business meeting or heading for a night out. Use ISD 15 to get 15% off all online items. That's ISD 15 for 15% off. Jamie, my main takeaway is it was a bad game. Like Notre Dame really played below the level of a team that you would consider to be like top 15 in the country. The type of team that's Year 6 Bowl. Like it was like all the way across the board. Like the level of play, I thought just was not it. And that was kind of my main thing, just kind of watching it and coming out of it. I tweeted out like it seemed like 2 4-4 teams out there playing a football game. And so that's kind of my main takeaway. What are some main takeaways for you before we get into the specifics here?
Well, I think that I would say that there were some critical, like you said earlier, there's some critical errors on defense that led to it. Like you give up the 41-yard run to Maffa.
Yeah.
That should be a tackle for loss. Like it was a great call.
Yeah.
It was a great call. Like you can't blame that on coaching. Like DJ Brown, like where you're supposed to fit the blitz. And that's just something that, and even like if you look at say the other touchdown that Klubnik got right on the slant.
On the slant, yeah.
On the slant to Clarence Lewis. First of all, I understand you're playing you're getting the twos and the guys played great against Pitt. But when they're completing passes down the field, you gotta that's when I really think that Marcus Freeman, it's too much like space. Think of like what the big picture of like, we got to have these timeouts for things. It's like, no, you got to know your team and be like, we got to get a timeout here. We got to get Morrison and Hart and Harper on the field here in the red zone because we need to stop, because giving up one of those is like, that's the game basically.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and because obviously Notre Dame wasn't scoring in the red zone. Right. Like, so you can't give that up. And, Sean Crawford mentioned it on Twitter too. You're bringing pressure. You have to take away the inside. That's the hot. Yeah. That's what Klubnik does. They throw that slant. I mean, Morrison broke up like 10 of them or whatever in the game. Like he knew it was coming, right? Like and broke up a bunch. Like, Lewis, you just can't give that up. You just absolutely can't give it up. And they're just things like that that are just absolutely crucial. Obviously, like, you got to give credit to Phil Maffa. I mean, I think he is a stud, and I knew he was going to be good if he got enough room. And really, like, Notre Dame did such a poor job. It wasn't just the DJ Brown. That blitz was a terrible job by him, but
Yeah.
just hitting the blitz and timing the blitz, and obviously some of that had to do with tempo. But like where you've seen like JD Bertrand and Maris, I think have done an outstanding job, really specifically like the last like few games of just timing up the blitz, especially like rundowns early down stuff, and they just were off, and it was just easy to pick up. And then because of that, that was like giving gaps there, and then they didn't have other people at the second level, and that's why they were getting like 10-yard runs, like,
Yeah.
and that's kind of how it was going there. So there was just things on defense because of like that was happening. Obviously, Kate Klubnik was who everyone thought he was. He's not good, and he's not good, right? Like,
I mean, 13 to 26 for him on the game, 109 passing yards. Like that's pedestrian. Like that's that you should win every game. Your quarterback has the opposing quarterback has numbers.
Throws
like
a pick, right? Like, so they only give up 4.1 yards per play in the game, right? So obviously the defense didn't lose the game. Like, they just could have done more stuff to win it, is the way that I would put it. But I mean, the offense, I would say, like, they came out and they ran on them early, but you run those sweeps and they were having success, but you just knew that they were going to adjust going out of halftime, and you weren't going to be able to do that anymore. And they didn't do anything. There is no adjustment to that. Like, Parker doesn't anticipate that. And that is my biggest problem with Jared Parker, is that, like, this guy has no anticipation of, like, hey, this is what's coming, so they're going to do this. I got to think of that. So you have to think as a play caller. You have to think about the next thing. And there were just so many, like, I mean, third down is just an absolute mess for Notre Dame. And I mean, I don't want to take anything away from Sam Hartman playing bad, because he was bad, right? But like, but you also got to call plays to help guys win on third down too.
Well, you're sitting there in 3rd and 10, and you run draw, in like already in field goal range, right?
Yeah.
So you run draw on 3rd and 10, you get 5, and you kick a field goal. Like, what's going on? Like, what is that?
What is the call there?
Yeah. Did you think you were going to get 10 yards on that? Like, is that what you thought? Like, oh, we have a perfect 3rd and 10 beater here, and we're going to get 10 yards with Jabron Payne. Like, if you run that ball, if you run that play, you have to. He had to have had. If he didn't get like some indication from Freeman, like, hey, we're going to go for it, if we were like 4th and 5, then you can't call that.
Then you simply cannot. Yeah.
It's just that can't happen. And you get in a couple other, missed third downs that lead to field goals, so you're sitting there with 9 points. You have a possible 21 points there. You were just leaving them on you're just leaving them out there, right? Like, Notre Dame, like you said, 5.4 yards per play. And then in the third quarter, they were almost 7 yards per play, right? I mean, they were moving the ball, and you get down there and you're not doing anything with it. It's like we've talked about it a bunch, Jamie, like these situational play calls, like, they're just not there. They don't have them. They don't have these play calls on third down where it's like, like, this is how we're going to extend the drive. Like, this is how we're going to move the sticks. And that's just like that's just not going to work. And that's why you get into a situation you get into. And then that's why the drive that the defense gives up at 10-6 with the backup secondary and their backup line and the backup nickel, like, that's why it's such a big deal. Because now you go from down 10-6 to 17-6, and now you got to get away from some of the running game stuff. I want to get to a couple of super chats from CFB Hertz. Marcus Freeman's still just a second-year head coach. We need to put a stop to these no-show performances. I don't like. We've seen this. Here's the thing, Jamie, is when we talk about like the struggles of Notre Dame's offense in the first half last week against Pitt, right? And people don't like that. And then they say, well, why are you nitpicking? Like, they won 58-7. Like, people are getting on me. Like, I remember on Twitter, like, I put up I put up the thing where they didn't run hot, and it's 7-0, and they didn't run hot, and people are getting on me like, well, they won 58-7. That's like, I know, but it wasn't 58-7 at the time. 7-0. You didn't have a good plan there. And then again in this game, it's the same situation where you don't have a good plan. And so we highlight these things. Notre Dame hasn't had a good offense performance since Central Michigan. Like, I know they had a good, success rate against Ohio State. It's 14 points. Like, they haven't had a very good offensive performance in 5 weeks.
Yeah.
So that's the problem. Like, this is what Notre Dame has shown themselves to be offensively, and then they didn't get the complementary football from the defense today, and that is kind of what made them look so poor, like on both sides of the ball in this game, in my opinion. Mark Youngman says Van Parker needs to go. Sam needs to sit next time he throws a pick. Defense was uninspired, but the offense is impotent. There's going to be a lot of questions, I think, about.
Also, just like, these guys are just savage. Van Parker, like,
just. Hey man, it's been a thing. It's been a thing. Ethan Kaufman, another super chat. Hartman has been a huge bust at Notre Dame. End of story. I mean, the bust thing is I think it's a little unfair. They've got some deficiencies at wide receiver, so I think that's unfortunate for him. In terms of, and it's also unfortunate for Parker, but you do have to work through these things. It is week 9 or week 10, excuse me. It's game 10. You do got to work through this stuff, and so that's part of it. Let's talk about Sam Hartman. Let's have a Sam Hartman conversation here. Some really poor decisions. The pick 6.
Yeah,
it's awful. I mean, that's a Tyler.
Just can't throw it.
That's a Tyler. He tried to throw it again later too.
Yeah. He
had Greathouse open for a touchdown. He overthrew him. It's just, there's too many times, Jamie, where it's like, where are you going with this ball, man? And when you go throw it, like where are you doing it? That's what I don't. It's just tough. He obviously is playing his butt off, loves Notre Dame, all that stuff. It's just not it right now for him.
I mean, it's not a question of playing hard. Yeah. Obviously, like, the guy had, that scramble for a touchdown. That's like a big time play.
It's a big time play for sure.
He clearly is, he clearly wants it. Like, it's just not there for him. And I mean, partially, some of it might be that he's, just frustrated with like when you don't have as much confidence in the receivers, then that does affect how you're going to play. So that's part of it too. But just right at the end of the game, you have Faison. He wins on the thing. Like, that's a huge play. If he leads them, it might be a touchdown, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you just got to make that throw in that situation. That's the thing. That's exactly why Sam Hartman is there, to make that throw, right? Like, and because the thing is you can have a bad game and do that, but you got to make that throw, right? Like, you have to make that throw. Like, and I think that the obviously the decision making and some of the picks and stuff have like, those are just bad. And I mean, frankly, they should have got the pick 6 to end the game too. Really, right? Like, there was a bunch of things like that. And then even like the decision too, where it's like, well, he threw the ball to the one to Tyree, but it was like that was going to be a pick. If it like, it was lucky that there was like pressure and that the throw was off, because that was going to be a pick. Like, to be fair, it's not like anybody else was open on that play, but still, it's just like, you can't throw it. You just can't throw it. And there's too many of those types of plays. I don't know. To me too, if you just look at this game, it's like, and I understand it's a different team that you're facing, but you didn't have all of the kind of momentum of you saying like, okay, now we have we've hit on some play action stuff, right? We're like using things that we're doing, but it's like, They didn't do anything off of those sweeps, any kind of action there to hit a play. Nothing. Especially when you're having a ton of success. Like that should have been something, 1st and 10, like out of the gate, like they're running something like that. Like nothing, right? The one almost pick six at the end too. That's like another one of those like dumb, like I don't even know why you're even faking a handoff. It's like no one is biting on that because there's no action that looks
Yeah.
anything like that. It's just you're wasting time against Clemson. Yeah, maybe that works against Central Michigan or whatever, right? But like, it's not going to work against Clemson's linebackers. It's not going to happen.
Especially not at that point in the game.
Yeah, exactly.
And not just that, but the route concept itself was just
Oh
like,
yeah,
what? Like, what? Like, what is this? You're running out up? Like that? What? Like, that's an unserious route combination at that point in the game against that team. Yeah, like it's just that's not gonna work out. Caleb Collins, Sean Lewis available yet? Freeman better make some moves this offseason. Listen, Sean Lewis, red flaggy to me that he even chose to go in that situation. So that's, in my opinion, red flaggy. Don't like that. Xander Cruz, thank you for the super chat. Xander Cruz is putting in his name to he wants Parker out. Jason Warnock, thank you for the super chat. Says, I'd start on Jelly the rest of the way to see what I had. Samku anything but beat up on below average teams. It's an interesting concept. I mean, I will admit I've considered this, right? Like here's the part of it is Marcus Freeman is a big, like,
he's
we're
a
not
player's
doing
guy.
that. He's a player's guy. He'd be very averse to that. And it's like he feels like he owes it to the older players, the seniors, the outgoing players, like to put his best team on the field. I think that's how he feels about this. So he's not a big, like, I'm looking to the future kind of person. He's never spoken that way. There is something to it though, right? Like you do need to know what you have. You do.
Yeah.
And there's no other way to actually give Angeli a fair shot than to actually put him in games and to see what you have there. That's like that's the fairest thing for him, but is that the fairest thing for the team itself? It's hard to say. It's hard to say. Let's see. Caleb Collins, thank you for the super chat. Been saying all year that Parker runs a high school offense. I mean, I've used the term a couple. I've used high school concepts. It's a little bit too insulting in my opinion, but we don't love what they're doing. Let's just put it like that.
No.
We don't love what they're doing. Joe, thank you for the super chat here. What does Freeman have to do to get this team ready to play on the road? It's a great question. Jamie. A road team this year, not good against Duke, not good against Louisville, not good against Clemson. They haven't played well on the road.
No.
Since Dublin. So,
and it's not a road game. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think? I mean, what do you think the problem is there? Like, look, it's not the first team ever that's good at home and poor on the road. What do you think that might be?
I mean, I'd say it's the offense. I mean, like just call it like it is. I don't even think you could just say like so the offense in general, because the defense has played well enough on every single one of these road games, even the Louisville game, they played well enough to win that game. Like, so, I mean, you can argue the defense has some lapses in like the Louisville game and in this game, but they certainly played well enough to win the game, like more than well enough to win the game. Also, they hand the offense another touchdown, basically again.
Yeah.
Right. Same thing again. Get the ball back at the end of the game to try to give another chance after Notre Dame didn't, take advantage of it. So it's the offense. They're not good enough. So really what it comes down to, and it's like I said, I don't want to be one of these people who's advocating for a coaching change on offense. It's not like fun to say that like they should fire this guy or these guys should get fired and all that. That's not like what we do. And It's not what I want to do, but I mean, it sure doesn't look like he's got a lot of job security. Like Jared Parker's got a lot of job security. And I think that's just kind of just a reality. I don't even think that's analysis. That's just a reality of what's going on. The offense has stunk it up on the road. And I think that, some of it is obviously the quarterback isn't as good on the road, and that's fine. I mean, the offensive line, even especially when you consider like they were down to their third center, like, at the end of the game, the
Yeah.
offensive line played more than well enough to win this game, considering the defense they were going against. Like, look at the sacks in the game, right? Like, you had basically it was like linebackers winning versus backs, right? And
Yeah.
Jeremiah Trotter's a stud. He's an unbelievable blitzer. One of the best guys at making people miss. Was a great pass rusher. But even at the end, you're like, you get on Blake Fisher when it's like, they're passing and Xavier Thomas can just like get geeked up. It's like, well, he's going to win some of those times. Like, it's just, that's what's going to happen. And you have to know, like, the ball needs to be out. So that's where, like, you got to make calls there to get better, to put them in better situations, knowing that this is going to happen. And I just thought, like, a lot of the kind of stuff where they're like, okay, well, now we're going to attack the perimeter here. We're going to do this. There just wasn't ever kind of like a plan there to really take advantage of anything with Clemson. And I mean, it's so much easier when you got the best Jimmies and their Joes aren't as good as you, and their Joes are better than Notre Dame's Jimmies at receiver. That's for sure. But you can find other ways, and there just wasn't that, or even just the fact that Audric Estime got 3 carries in the second half. Like, what are we doing here? Like, you have to find a way to get him the ball. And when it's like, okay, well, they're not doing this, well, we're going to do this instead. The other thing is, like, it's like they ran duo and there were holes there in duo.
Yeah.
Just Zeke Correll just got blown up.
Yeah.
That was basically what happened. It was like he couldn't block his guy. So, and maybe like Christophic was going to get blown up too, and whatever, and Craig, whatever. But it's like, those are plays that I would have saw and been like, we should still call this. Like, these are,
well, all that ISO stuff they were doing, like, that just went away. All the power stuff they were doing just went away. Like, everything was they were running sweeps on everything. And it's like you said, like, okay, like, all right, like, it worked. Now you got to do other things, right? Like, you have to change up, right? Like, it's like in baseball, you have to change their eye level. You can't just throw the same pitch in the same spot over and over again. Eventually you're going to get got, especially against a defense like this. So that's kind of what we're talking about there. So here's the thing, as far as Sam Hartman, he's taking it on the chin right now in the press conference. If you want to blame somebody, you want to tweet at somebody, tweet at me. It's unacceptable. It's just unacceptable, honestly. So he's talking about himself there. We had ample opportunities to make plays and I didn't make them. I mean, I didn't play up to the standard. I mean, he's taking it, right?
I mean, he's taking it. I mean,
he's taking it how a leader takes it, right? As a leader takes it. And that's what you want. And so when you have someone standing up there like that and doing that, I think you do have to respect that, and you do have to appreciate that to some extent. Caleb Collins, thank you for another super chat. Talking about the Shanghai Sharks. That's a very common it's a basketball thing, right? Yeah. So anytime Russell Westbrook, the guy from the Grizzlies, like, anytime you're bad, it's like, oh, you're going to go to the Shanghai Sharks. So that's what that means for Jared Parker. Irish 0295. Time for Hartman to pull a hammy and the other guys get some snaps. See, that's the thing, man. Like, when you see Hartman coming in and taking it like he is, it's hard to say, you know what, man, like, get out of here. Like, we don't need you anymore, kind of thing. Yeah. It's hard to say that. Like he's a player on the team. and he's trying his hardest, and that's where it is. So I think there is some merit to the talk of Angeli getting some time, just because you do want to see, but it's hard to do that as a coach, especially. Jay Cordell Steinmetz, thank you for the super chat. Absolutely no spice. Didn't see some spice on offense. I'll tell you that.
No,
we did not see that today. Jason Warnock, is Angeli a downgrade though? I think this is like basically saying, like, is Angeli basically on par with Hartman? So here's, like, days like today, no, right? Like, it just, like, Angeli could have done exactly what Hartman did, right? But I think a lot of the time we make a mistake of saying things like, well, he can play, like, X guy.
He must
can
be
play
better. Yeah.
Well, it's like X guy can play just as bad. It's like, I know, but we're actually looking for improved play is the thing.
Yeah.
Like, we're actually looking for improvement, right? So you don't want to come in and play poorly. You want to come in and play better, right? And obviously, Sam Hartman has a better game out there than what he showed today, and that makes it very difficult to kind of gauge, right? Because the other part that's hard is, like, Sam Hartman, you expect him to play well against Wake, and it's like, that's the other thing. You're gonna bench him against Wake?
No, you can't.
You can't bench him against Wake. Like, you can't do that. You know, like, I just, like, that's not happening. You got to let him run out. You got to let him run out. You got to let him have his senior day. Like, right. Like, I think you do need to do that. Maybe Stanford. All right. Maybe Stanford. My sister's here. Carrie Famong, my sister. Thank you. Every quarterback has a bad game. Stand-up guy for telling the truth. That's football. Facts, Jamie. Yeah. Facts from my sister. Good for you, Carrie. Good luck tonight with the USC situation. Xander Cruz, thank you for the super chat. Angeli, 117 of 170 passing on an undefeated high school team. That's all you need to know. He belongs in the MAC. Michael Pratt from Tulane. What was Michael Pratt's high school stuff?
I'm gonna guess probably worse than being a state champion. The hardest league in New Jersey. So I mean, just it's not based on whatever he's in the program now.
The only reason we know about Michael Pratt at all is because he's at Tulane, and not backing up Sam Hartman at Notre Dame. You know, like, so no, it just yeah.
And you can look at Steve Angeli's one of his best receivers was Jaden Bellamy, who couldn't play corner at Notre Dame. Like, it's just, I mean, there's a lot of different things you can look at. It doesn't matter. The thing is like, yeah, Notre Dame, whatever. Notre Dame, everybody knows Notre Dame is going to look for someone in the portal. Like, they're going to look to improve any way they can.
Yeah.
And the other thing is now, and just kind of flipping it, because I know there's obviously a lot more we can talk about this game, but you kind of have to look at it from the perspective of, like, well, now they're not going to go to a New Year's Six bowl. The defense was certainly good enough for them to be like a CFP contender, like to get it, especially in this year. They were good enough to get into the conversation.
Yeah, 100%.
And so, because of, like, you know, obviously what happened on offense, it's evident this has not worked out well with what has happened on offense. And, you know, you could kind of point to certain stats and be like, well, there's this and that, but just the actual game, how they've played at once they started playing better teams, how they played against better defenses. Like, they just have stunk against anyone who had a pretty good defense, really. Like, the only time they had any kind of day against a good defense was NC State, which was it was really fool's gold, because it didn't really show anything, because that was just at that point in the season, and they never really built on that at all. So I think you just have to kind of look at it as, like, it's like a weird situation where, like, now all of a sudden it's not unlike Brian Kelly, and after his second year, it was like, man, people forget, but there was a lot of pressure on Brian Kelly going into that year 3. Like there was a lot of
Yeah.
pressure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it was not a good first 2 years. Like obviously the finish of 2010 kind of was like, okay, there's some hope, but 2011, like it couldn't have started off any worse. And they still just had those like stumbles along the way, and which is kind of similar to kind of this season, really, in a lot of ways. So it's a huge year for Marcus Freeman next year. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, this was obviously a big year. Every year is a big year for a coach who's at a prominent place like this. But like now, there's so much that goes into like, you got to get it right, because it's just where they're at right now is they couldn't, even if they just say everything worked out, and there could have been a way, just like how Clemson can say, well, look at, we're 5-4, Dabo's going to spin it, which is gross that he's going to spin it, that we're a couple plays away from this and that, whatever, right?
Let him spin it. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah. But like, you could spin it in a certain way too, to be like, oh, look at this with the Ohio State game, this and that, whatever. It's like, no, the offense wasn't good enough. Like they would have, if they got to a playoff thing, it would have been 2018 all over again against a good team, against a really, really good team. I don't even know if there's a good team this year, but how gross would that be if Notre Dame went and played a Michigan and got boat raced by a Michigan because of that, right? Like, and that's the kind of thing that could have happened, right? So, and it's not that the defense is good enough, just like the defense was good enough in 2018, right? And the defense was really good enough in 2020 for the most part, right? Like it was good enough to get there. But like, you have to have an offense that can at least put up points, that can't be this bad on third down. Just this bad on third down. And that's just kind of where they're at.
Yeah. Iris295, thank you for the super chat. Tobias gives no effort and shouldn't play. I don't care what the wide receiver situation looks like. What I would say to Tobias, if I was to talk to him, is like he makes like on the last deep ball, especially. I don't know where the ball actually landed. It didn't land it like it was close to him. What I would say is like, what and someone else brought this up to me in my DMs, like, and I'm like, look, he's never catching it. He's not catching it. And I think that he knows he's not catching it. So it's like, oh, I'll let it fall. There is something to like sometimes as a wide receiver, like you dive after a pass that you're never getting there. You're never getting there, but you do need to kind of like show, I am going to dive. You know what I mean? Like I've seen that before. Where it's like, stop acting like you're not getting it, even though you're not getting it, right? I do not think that there are any plays that he didn't make because he didn't try hard enough. I think that there are a bunch of plays where it's like, it doesn't look like you're trying very hard. And that is on him. It's a bad body language thing, and it will get pointed out in film, and he will get run for it. Okay. But I do think that just like you do need to show it a little bit more. Like it can't look like that. It can't.
People don't like bad whenever
it
you see
bad.
him.
It
any
looks bad.
Pass that isn't close to him, it looks bad. It looks like he's not trying.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, which is the thing is that you, especially because when you see him as a blocker, like he like works hard as a blocker, which is why, that part of it, you're like, you don't want to just fully like get on him for it, because it's obviously he's not like a guy, he's like a dog. Like he's not a guy who 100% dogs. It's like he knows he's not getting the ball when he's blocking, and he still does it, right? So, but there's obviously some kind of disconnect there, because
he obviously cares.
Yeah, but there's some kind of disconnect because it obviously doesn't look good whenever it goes this way, and it's just impossible. There's no way that anyone could kind of sugarcoat that it looks not like how it looks.
I do think it's important to point out, like, and this isn't a Tobias thing. It's important to point out, like, they really needed Jaden Thomas not to be hurt for this long. He didn't play.
Yeah.
I didn't see him get a snap. And so, like,
That killed them this year.
I don't want to go in on this, Jamie, but we talked about it 3 weeks ago, a month ago. Stop playing him. What?
Yeah. They absolutely mishandled that all the way. And you know what, too? That's something, too, that I think that goes obviously deeper than the coaching staff. That's like,
there's a training staff problem
yes,
there. Like
that is like,
you cannot send him out there.
No, because there was obviously like a high risk of him re-injuring it, and he did multiple times.
And you lost him for the year. You have lost him. You lost him. They played. He stayed in the game against Ohio State. He was clearly hurt. He went out. He missed a week. He came back and played 30 plays. Hurt it again. I mean, Marcus Freeman said he's worse against USC than he was against Louisville. He was worse. And then they had a bye. And then you had a game where you threw it to him deep, up 40 points, and he's limping. And now he doesn't play at Clemson, and you can't throw the ball.
Yeah.
That is so bad. That is honestly worse than like all of the in-game decision making, honestly, because that is like you have limited amount of time. You have to know you cannot allow this player to go out and hurt himself. I mean, it's been 6 weeks since he hurt his hamstring.
And he's been a complete non-factor since. And there's just so many, and with Mitchell Evans gone too, which obviously that is a massive loss. And you see it today because like it's not like with Stays, there's obviously a difference between the two.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not saying like all the balls that went Stays' way were like all his fault or anything like that. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm just saying like, all of a sudden Stays, it's like, okay, well, Holden, you got to win on this third down because that's where Mitchell was winning. Like that's a tough situation to be put in. And I mean, what can you do with the Mitchell Evans thing? But like the fact that you could have controlled the Thomas thing, and that was they just completely mishandled that and mismanaged that, and it's absolutely cost the offense. Like it's I get it because the Duke game was so bad in so many ways and only having those many receivers, but just bringing him back, they could have just, if they just would have gave it time, and then maybe after that bye week, he would have been back and then good, but they just, they didn't. And they are where they are right now.
Stubborn Mick is asking about Deion Colsey. The way that Freeman's been talking about him, there was no way. Like I never thought that he was coming back. Plus, he was like limping around the other day. Like the reporter saw him. That's not happening. He's not coming back this year, and he doesn't need to at this point, right? Like he is. They're 7-3 now. The best case scenario is 9-3, and then it's just you don't need to be rushing people back to go 9-3. Here's a fun quote for you, Jamie, from Marcus Freeman. The pick six kind of spooks you. It spooks you. It spooks the quarterback a little bit. Makes you say, okay, let's go back to the run game a little bit. Well, you can't really get spooked too much because it's 24-6. So it's just like you can't. You do need to be throwing the ball, and sometimes it's a press conference. You don't want to get nitpicky there, but it's just like the fact that you're thinking that with your quarterback is not
That
great.
shows the lack of confidence in the quarterback.
Right.
I think
Which is,
that says kind of says it all about how they feel
yeah,
about Sam Hartman right now, or how Marcus Freeman, and obviously we know he's not the kind of guy who's trying to throw players under the bus at all, right?
yeah,
Like that's not his style at all. And I don't think he's really doing it there, but that is a telling quote of it. That's how you kind of feel. You're like, I don't feel it's the opposite of how he probably felt earlier in the season
yeah,
when they're like, okay, like let's call these timeouts and try to get this to get it going here.
yeah,
Also, it kind of doesn't really like I mean, this is why too some of the questions like right after the game are kind
yeah,
of hard to kind of, he's got like a million things thinking about, like
yeah,
all the things that went wrong and all the things that like, God, we got to do this for during, because they got a bye week, right? So they got to think about all this stuff during the bye week. They got to think about all this they're having all these meetings of like what they're doing for recruiting and what they're going to do in the portal and all this kind of stuff. So he's got all this stuff like rolling through his mind right at the end of this game after this debacle. So it's like what he said about, you think you got to run the ball more. It's like they didn't really run the ball more after that.
yeah.
They actually probably ran it less.
They probably ran it less. Yeah.
They
I think
probably
I saw,
should.
but then it kind of goes to show like he was spooked a little bit, right? Like it
Yeah.
freaked him out. I mean, that kind of goes to like it goes to his own mindset, maybe not the mindset of his coordinator or his actual quarterback, but his own, right? And it like I think that it kind of is a tell on his part where it's like I get a little bit flustered. It flusters him, you know. And that's the thing. I mean, there's so much going on, Jamie. There's so much going on because like, so, okay. I watched this, I watched this game on delay a little bit. I caught up in the middle of the second quarter because I had to coach my son's soccer team today. And even that, like it's U8, right? It's not going, but it's like, there's a lot in your head. Right. And so, I understand what's going on with Marcus Freeman, Jamie, because of my U8 soccer thing. We won 8-0. I wish we had video of that. I'd put that up on one of these streams if we had video. You know what? We could have got, Jamie? We could have got some banging video if I had VSR Media on site, which is founded by Notre Dame pregame host and Emmy award-winning anchor Vahid Sadrazadeh. VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or are aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, and website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshots, senior and sports photos. Contact them at vsrmediacompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. I do have a little Flamand. He's my guy. They did got the 8-0, Jamie. It was the referee at halftime was like, you gotta pull players back. I'm like, I don't know how to tell, the field's only so big, and I can't pull him back too much there. But someone brought up, let's see, Scott is bringing up Scott L, I believe it was bringing up Marist, and Marist had a tough game in this game. Absolutely, he's asking why
we're both not good.
Why didn't Notre Dame see that and put in anyone else?
They did. Kaiser played.
Kaiser played a bunch. The other part, Jamie, is you can't have your stars lay an egg, right? Sometimes there's just no solution to these things. If your star lays an egg out there and is not playing well, and one's your captain, and Maris has played well in how many games this year, right? Like he's been a mainstay for them, right? If they're like Morrison had a bad drive there where he gave up the crosser and then he gave up the inside on a slant route to Bo Collins, which is probably the worst play he's made all year, right? Don't jump the outside. You got to stay inside, right? Cut that off. They're blitzing. They're going to throw slant. They've been throwing slant all game. You can't open the gate up, right? But like when you have your key players make mistakes like that, because Xavier Watts had a pass interference penalty in this game, right? Cam Hart had a pass interference penalty in this game. Like, it just, when the main guys on your defense are playing poorly, at some point it's like, hey, you got to start playing better.
I mean,
what are you
also,
gonna do? You're gonna put in Drake Bowen? You're gonna put in Drake Bowen against Clemson for his first real snaps? That's gonna solve the problem? No. So it's just like, you need your stars to play well.
Also, like, this is another. I mean, I'm whatever. They didn't lose the game because of the refs, but Clemson has 0 penalties in the game. Like, come on.
Well, what do we always talk about, Jamie? Selective officiating, right? And there is no greater example of that. It didn't cost Notre Dame anything. Okay, didn't cost them a thing. On the long run by Estime, they banged Greathouse for holding right in front of the ref. Rico Flores is having his face shoved up. He's running with his head up. For 5 yards, this happened. And you don't call it, but you bang him for the holding call. Now, it didn't matter because it would have been offsetting. So it would have been 1st and 10 instead of 1st and 11, right? But that's just an example of, like, selective officiating is the thing where it's like, hey, we're going to bang you for everything that I see from you. But all this stuff for Clemson, we're going to let it go. We're going to let that go. We're going to let it play on one side. We're not letting it play on the other side. Like, that's selective officiating, and we see it all the time. How do you not have any penalties in a game like that? There's none out there for you? Go ahead.
I mean, I can guarantee that once I go back and watch the game, that there are 2 guards that were playing that haven't played that much held a lot.
Right.
Like, I can pretty much guarantee it.
Yeah.
It's like, they got to call it. And if they're not going to call it, like, I mean, that's just kind of what it is, right? Like, I don't know. And the other thing is that they're, what's funny is that, okay, so the X Watts PI, like, that is actually almost a carbon copy of the Jaden Greathouse offensive PI.
Right.
That that guy did to him.
Right.
But it's like, because Watts didn't fall down, it's just, those are those kind of things that just kind of happen. It's like, well, Watts kind of stood up to him and didn't get bullied. And then it was like, well, and then he fought back, which is a little bit like, there was the one Benjamin Morrison play where they were like complaining and they were saying, well, that should have been PI. Look, he grabbed the thing. It was like, well, they were both fighting. Like, they were just, it was a good no call because both those guys were just like going for it at each other. And that's kind of what you got to do. Like, if they're both doing it, don't call anyone.
Yeah.
Right. Like, don't call anyone. And they just like called Notre Dame on a couple of those or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's just selective officiating. That's all. I mean, Notre Dame, Ben, Jamie literally started talking about this with the refs didn't cost Notre Dame the game. He literally started talking about the topic with that disclaimer. Don't. Yeah. Goodness. Anyway. All right. So the thing, okay. So here's the thing, right? Defense played well enough to win the game. Okay. It's 31-20. It's 31-23 for a long time. They got a bunch of stops in a row, just a string of stops, right?
Yeah.
That's you got it. Your offense.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
6 stops in a row.
6.
At
31-23.
You have to. You have to pay it off at that point. You have to from the offense. That being said, the drive after they got the Xavier Watts interception to make it 24-16, that might be the most disappointing thing that's happened this season, honestly. Like, beyond, like, it's either that, and it's either that or the 3rd and 19 and then the 10 on the field. The Ohio State stuff is definitely more disappointing. But after that, like that of all this year, and it's unfortunate that I just went in on the defense on Thursday too. It's like, that's my favorite defense that I've ever covered for Notre Dame. And they had like 2 of the most disappointing things of this year because you can't have that drive. It can't happen. There's too many mistakes there too. Give up the long run to Maffa. You give up a bunch of 10-yard plus plays in a row. Ben Morrison, he gets beat. And look, it's great coverage on the crosser. He gets beat inside. You get a penalty on Watts. They don't have to call, but you still get it. Then they go down and score. I mean, that was when it's like, look, it's going to be very difficult to go down and win this game now. Like it is. To ask this offense to play multiple touchdowns down in the third quarter against this defense on the road, it's just not going to happen. Like you can't, like that could not be a thing that happened in this game the way that it was going and the way that the offense is constructed. That was very, very disappointing. It was like really bad from this defense, especially considering how good they've been this year.
Yeah, no, that was a super disappointing drive. And that one was with all the starters in the game.
Yeah.
So that wasn't, a situation. That's just like it's a thing where you got to rise up. Someone's got to rise up and make a play. And it was just missing on that series. And I think that, you can't just, it's easy to just pick these one series when like fourth quarter or like third quarter on after that touchdown drive for Notre Dame's offense, 3 and out, four plays, 23 yards, 3 and out, 5 plays, interception. And then obviously on downs, you turn it over at the end of the game. You got to find something on one of those drives. That's all you need is one of them.
Yeah.
And even then, I can't say there's no way that anyone who's watching it from a Notre Dame perspective thought that Notre Dame scores here, they're going to feel confident they were going to make the 2-point conversion. No one felt that way. So I really felt like Notre Dame probably needed to score twice, because I was like, I don't know if they're going to get the 2-point. And obviously they didn't even come close to scoring once.
They didn't really even almost score. And the thing is, Jamie, and I'm sure you felt the same. Like I was like, where is this coming from? Where are they going to get this offense from? Where are the yards coming from? They just don't have the ability against a team like this to play quickly, to spread a team out, and even get the easy stuff. Like even the easy things, like they were getting Clemson on all those crossers. And finally that Clemson was like, hey, we're just going to play zone, and you can't have any more crossers, because they were manning up their receivers, but then they were getting crossed up all game. Clemson went zone, and then that was it. No more crossers. And therefore the entire passing game was done. There was nothing they had off that. They were never going to get anything off that. The only nitpick you can say about the defense is like, they got a bunch of stops, but they also like got a bunch of stops around the 50-yard line. And so they were able, Clemson was able to pin them back every single time. Yeah. And a part of that too was like, well, when they get the ball at the 50, when they get the ball at the 50. Yeah. So they get the ball at the 50, you get a stop. It was the one time where it was like Clemson was pinned deep. They were able to drive it to the 50, and then they were able to punt over his head. Or they were able to punt and get it down there. And you could never get a play out to the 50 at least, right? That was the other thing. Like you keep having these 3 and outs. You can't flip the field. And that was the other problem. And it's like, and the problem is too, is you get into another game where Jeremiah Love, you feel like he barely touches it. Jarian Price, you feel like he barely touches it. In the first half, there's so much Greathouse and Flores. And not that there's anything wrong with it per se, but it's like those guys just aren't going to stretch the field. They aren't going to threaten the defense vertically. And so it just makes everything harder because it condenses the entire field for which Notre Dame is trying to operate. Right? They like, and look, Clemson did them a favor allowing all those crossing routes, but you could never get anything deep. You could never get anything down the field. And that's going to kill you, because eventually, like, they just keep moving in. They keep moving in. They keep moving in. By the time the game gets late, it's like you're not going to be able to get anything. So it's like the strength of the team is those backs. And I feel like the only one who had any sort of traction in this game was Estime. And then you go away from him, and then what do you have? Like who were you confident in for Notre Dame to throw the ball? Like when you're sitting there watching, who do you think, you know what, they need to throw it to this guy. They need to get this guy involved.
No, they don't have any, because they don't have anyone. The only guy that they really had all year to do that was Evans. It's like, well, we think that this guy can win a one-on-one.
Yeah.
He's literally been the only guy all year that they've felt like, even when, obviously they missed Jane Thomas, but Jane Thomas never really did that before he was hurt. So Evans was the only guy that you're like, okay, if we get a matchup, like we think he's going to get it. And not just that, he can like make a guy miss. He can all of a sudden it's, an 11-yard gain turns into a 25-yard gain, right? Like, and which is also too why, like, it's funny because there's a reason why people get excited about Jordan Faison, is because he's really the only guy who makes people miss as a receiver. Like, he's kind of got that ability, and obviously you saw it, you've seen it with him in his limited chances. But they just don't have anyone else who's really going to be able to do that, and they don't have anyone else right now. Because I think like Greathouse and Flores are going to be the kind of guys that win on third downs against man coverage as they get older, but it's not right now. It's like they're freshmen still, right?
Yeah. And you're not going to be able to build an explosive passing game with them as like the two guys who are just out there all the time.
You need more. Yeah, you need more. So which is why too, like, I know obviously he's not involved and I'm not one of these like, play Braylon James, but that's why you kind of need Braylon James to be somebody, or you need Cam Williams, in the next class to be somebody, like, because you need that kind of guy to be that explosive element that you're like, okay, well, we got a matchup, it's over, like that kind of thing. Or, let's see if he hurts it, or Merriweather, but obviously they just haven't.
Yeah.
He's just not there.
Well, again, Tobias, like, that's another one where, on the Hartman scramble touchdown, that was the one time they got into my favorite formation, which is trips with the tight end opposite attached. And they ran the route that's always open. And Tobias was open. He didn't want to throw it. But he was open, and then he ended up running for touchdown. But like, that's my favorite formation. And that's where Tobias is best, like in that middle of the field. If you're not putting him in there and you're just getting him out wide, it might as well be me. They're not throwing it. It might as well be me out there. There was another play. They had, I think it was Flores on a go, where it's like Hartman got sacked. They did the same route combination where Tobias was to the boundary and he ran a little crosser, but they jumped it. It was never there. But it's like, you have a go, you got to throw it. You got to throw the go, because it's like no one's over the top. It was the same thing on the pick to Tyree. There's a diamond in front of you. There's two linebackers and there's a safety. You got to throw it over both of them. You overthrow Tyree and it's an interception. You have a go on the other side. Like, it's first down. You have to throw it. You can't throw it into the danger, so you need to throw it over the top. Ga Wang is here. Thank you, Ga. You look great in your avatar, by the way. You must be wearing ESQ clothing. Pull up Sam 2023 versus Pine 2022. A, I don't want to do that. And B, here's the other thing. Jamie. Would it or would it not be so much better for Sam Hartman if he had the 2022 receiving core?
It would be a lot better, yeah.
You had healthy Thomas. Lorenzo Styles, for how much we don't like him or whatever, he is better than everything that Notre Dame has right now. And that won't be true of Greathouse and Flores, I think, in the future. That won't be true. But today, that's better. He had healthy Deion Colsey. Obviously, he had healthy Michael Mayer the whole season, right? Like, Hartman didn't get that benefit of Evans today. And so, like, he had a better situation at wide receiver. He just did.
Lindsey,
shoot, put Lindsey on his team. That would be fantastic. So I just, we went into the year, and a lot of people are saying we've overrated Hartman. I think that's true to some extent. We also assumed that the wide receiver situation would be a lot better than it is right now. And again, I don't want to bang the individual players. It's just a fact of the matter that they have no upperclassmen, literally none. Like they're not playing any upperclassmen. Who are they playing? Tyree, but he's been a wide receiver for 10 minutes. He might as well be a freshman. He's just been playing it, right? So he's a first-year guy at wide receiver. Tobias is sophomore. Flores and Greathouse are freshmen. Faison's a freshman. That's who they're running out there. So,
and I think it's fair to say too that I know whatever, some people might not like it, but Tommy Rees was a much better guy at scheming stuff up on third downs. He just was. He just did a much better job of scheming guys open, just doing a lot of things, like doing a lot of like pre-snap stuff and a lot of formation stuff, where they were able to, like, a lot of like this, like, when's the last time you saw Notre Dame run like a stack release?
Yeah.
Like you don't see it, right? And maybe partially that's because of the receiver situation, right? And a lot of that is like option routes, and obviously you can do that with some of the guys a lot easier, right? But they missed that. Like, that's just not even. I mean, it's not even part of the equation for Notre Dame.
The Rees thing is similar to the Kelly thing in that, like, Rees, you're a good offensive coordinator, but we need someone who's going to take us to the next level. That was everyone's problem with Brian Kelly. It's like, hey, we're tired of 10 wins. We're tired of 11 wins. We need to win in the playoffs. So that's what he needs to do. That's why he needs to go, right? Same thing with Rees. You're a good offensive coordinator. We need a great offensive coordinator. Well, sometimes a good offensive coordinator, it's nice to have that as well, because you actually have someone who could scheme you about. Because here's the other part, right? Like, how many times did Notre Dame hit Logan Diggs on some kind of wheel route? Some running back running wide open by himself. When have we seen that? We have not, right? It just hasn't been a thing. And so it's just like Rees was not perfect, right? The quarterback room is what it is because of him. And he missed on Buckner, 100%. Missed on Dracovic, although I don't know if he was his guy. Was he his guy? I don't know.
No, Dracovic was a Mike Sanford guy. But there's a million reasons not to want Tommy Rees. It's not that. I'm just saying in comparison.
Right.
To Jared Parker. But I mean, how about an angle route from a running back?
Yeah.
How about an angle route from a guy like Jeremiah Love or JD Price?
Yeah.
Those they can win on those, right? How about putting Chris Tyree in the backfield and getting him a matchup on a linebacker?
Yeah.
Like, when you can't, it's like, you don't have anyone. Maybe you're not going to find just straight up, like, you don't have a boundary receiver who's just going to beat their boundary corner. Okay. But find another matchup. It's kind of your job to find another matchup and get into a better thing. And they don't do that. They don't. And that's how it is. Right. And like, to the point. So like, the quadrant right brings up the slant working for Clemson. Right. And it did work for them enough times. Right. That it worked. But it's like, I mean, if they had more than that, they could do. I mean, they got nothing on offense either, really. Clemson, all they had was Maffa, Really, that was the only thing that got them
Yeah,
done. But it's
Clemson
like,
was not a good offensive team today. I mean, again, Klubnik, 13 of 26, 109 yards. I mean, you're talking about like under 5 yards per
it's a
attempt.
historically
That's ridiculous.
horrific day. It's a horrific day.
That's terrible. Yeah.
Like, yeah. Yeah, like I hope people bet the under on his yards, because I knew that was going. I knew that
their long reception was 18 yards today.
Yeah,
the longest
and they
play
don't have
they
receivers
had
who can win either. Yeah,
yeah, they had a 41-yard run for Maffa, and that's it. I mean, they had no explosives in the passing game. They had one explosive in the running game, and that was good enough for 31 points for them today.
Yeah,
it's just, it's unfortunate. What do you think, James? We'll leave it there.
Yeah.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you're catching on replay, if you want to, tell someone about this, please hit the like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, so you know going live. I'll be live tomorrow morning, doing a morning after recap show. Check out irsportsdaily.com. Jamie's gonna have an instant reaction post going up. Matt's gonna have a bunch of stuff going up as well. A lot of information about this game. It's a day game, so I'll have a lot of opportunity to watch film, and I'll have a lot of information tomorrow for the show. So check me out tomorrow. That'll be 9:30 Eastern time, a.m., 6:30 Pacific time. Notre Dame 31-23, 7-3 going into the bye. Probably falling out of the top 25. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see how it turns out for them. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your weekend. I'll talk to you tomorrow morning. Keep hitting and hustling.